What is going on, you guys? It's your boy Rizzle Me Timbers here, and we're back with episode 61 of the video game therapy series. Yeah, I still don't have my skin fixed, so when I get around to it, I'll end up fixing my skin because it is quite obnoxious that I don't have the patented Rusty Bucket skin, which is missing from this. But anyway, I have one particularly spicy contrarian take that I'd like to start up with out front. No promises for the rest of the video, but certainly one that I was thinking about quite a bit today, and I don't know, just is worth sharing with the void. That's how I view it. And it's quite ironic, I suppose. What the? Oh man, this is not good. It's quite ironic, at least, I guess, with this series being the video game therapy series. But it's the belief that I don't think therapy works, at least like therapy in this very traditional sense where you go sit in an office with some person and they ask you questions and you just kind of talk about stuff. And I mean that, it's not that I said it doesn't work like at all in that sense. I mean it more in the sense that it's ineffective and it's a mask for what it really is. So the first thing to note about just the industry as a whole is it is exploding in popularity, right? Now more than ever, like therapy is a huge booming like financial industry. So the first arm of looking at this is the financial part. And you only really ever see people enter you don't ever see people like stop doing therapy. A lot of times they start going to a therapist, and then because they think it helps, they just never stop. And so a ton of people are entering, no one's leaving. There's a ton of money there. And so by nature, the therapists themselves aren't, obviously they're motivated but in some sense to help you, but they're also motivated like to keep them in a job, right? So it's like, they're not gonna solve all your problems for you in a half a session and send you on your way. They want to keep you around. So they have incentive to do that. Now whether they really whether you trust them to really live that, live in that way, this is a different story entirely. But either way, there's a huge financial incentive to keep you in the therapy, not necessarily graduate you, right? You can finish school and be done with it, but you don't really ever finish therapy, right? And there's not like at least pretty much anyone, there's no like, oh, we're going to do 2 sessions and it's done. It's always just like, oh, you want to come back again. And soon enough, it becomes just a regular medical expense that you don't even think about. And because it's medical in some sense, quote unquote, psychological, that you can't question a medical expense. You got to have it, right? And I think it's in its worst form, it's a way to con people out of their money. And there are certainly more noble effects of the modern therapy, but I view a lot of it as there's a lot of finance in the therapy industry as a whole, and it is unsavory to say the least. At the worst, again, it's just straight exploitation. And again, people enter and they don't really leave, or they're entering at a rate that is obnoxiously high compared to like solving it. And so if the point is to, it makes you feel better, right? Okay, it's like, I always feel better after my therapy sessions. So I guess the point would be to I don't know, psychologically prepare people for life. Like, that people come to this shocking realization that the world is, runs on entropy, is chaotic, and they don't have control over it, but yet they need these therapy sessions in order to deal with, that truth, which I guess is a lot for them. But again, anecdotally, it says never seems to be, it doesn't appear that therapy really improves the ability to deal with life stress. If anything, it just gives them a location in which they are actively looking to deal with these problems that they have, however nebulous they might be. But it's not often that people come out of any kind of therapy and are like hardened, right? A lot of times they're just weaker than they were weaker psychologically, of course, than when they entered, right? And they're more vulnerable. And now that they're thinking more about, the difficulties and the, inequities of the world, that they are more deeply more troubled by them now than when they were before. So maybe they were minorly troubled, and now they go to therapy and every week they think about, racial inequity, whatever they're thinking about. I'm not even sure what people go to therapy for. But now they're even more in tune with, problems. And it never seems to, you don't see these like, hard-minded stoics coming out of a therapy session. No, you see people that are more weakened than ever and more privy, and they always they have more excuses for things and more boogeymans than they had before. Whereas they're not really. If the point is to solve the problem, you're making the underlying issue worse, right? And sure, you might feel better, but that's really the equivalent of like of doing drugs to make you feel better. It's a short term. It's a bad long-term idea, right? And it's not even that much different from doing drugs. I guess it doesn't damage you physically, but financially it's the same, right? Instead of you buying, I don't even know what drugs help, weed or something every week, you instead just, you pay for a ridiculously expensive therapy session. And you're still, whereas, weed might make you less anxious, it also makes you more privy to anxiety and attacks in the same way that therapy might do the same, because you're always thinking about, oh, I need to speak to my therapist about this, or oh my God, this, whatever. It doesn't increase your grit or resolve, which is why I think it's problematic, to say the least. And I don't know. I get the big concerning part for me is the enormous financial opportunity that exists in the therapy industry. So again, I think the cause itself is noble to try and help people, but given that there's no incentive within the industry itself to get people out, because the therapists want more clients, the people that own the practices, they want more clients. The only people who really get screwed are the people that now have to add one more subscription to their life. So now it's the psychological dependence subscription on this person who's going to listen to their problems. And again, the reason I say I preface this by saying it's somewhat ironic is that this is my version of therapy. But the difference is that it costs me nothing, right? And I also know that it's stupid, and there's not I'm not necessarily like solution seeking here. I think part of the issue is that people think that they have issues, right? They have no real problems. So they kind of invent these psychological problems to wrestle with because their lives are so easy. Whereas I really don't focus on, this is purely about me venting. And I know I don't need to come up with these tactics or whatever to deal with life stressors. I can deal with life stress just fine. It's just, it's cathartic to complain about it in some sense. So I'm not ignoring that as a function of therapy, but I don't have to pay anybody to do it. And it's not just the money part of it. I realize some people, they like paying for stuff, which I suppose if you had an option to pay or not to pay, I'm not sure why you would pay. But also it creates a dependence, right? You're obliged to go see this, especially like for, I don't know, there's a strong psychological aspect of obligation, right? You don't want to subliminally insult the therapist by only going once and never going again because you don't think you need it, or you think you're above therapy or something. I truthfully, I don't think any of that. I just don't think I don't want to be paying somebody money for the rest of my life to do things that you don't ever like finish. There's no end. It's just kind of, we're going to perpetually just kind of drain you. And I don't know, in the world of financialization that we kind of live in now, I don't see why more people aren't trying to lop off these dead branches. And I see this just being as one more way people can have money extracted from their pockets, And of course, it's under the guise of being good. It's not like I'm not saying that in and of itself it's an evil thing. It's not inherently evil. It's just we're kind of asking for it to be evil, right? The only people that really everybody that wins is the people who control the means of providing therapy. It's not the I don't know. At that point, it's no different. It's all just kind of a very, very enhanced placebo effect, in my view, because you can accomplish the same thing by, again, downloading OBS and playing Minecraft and making a burner YouTube channel. So I don't know. I think it's just quite evil, and I don't think it really. My underlying point is I don't think it helps prepare people psychologically for life. So if that's like the point, is to deal with the stressors of life, again, where are these people that come out like able to deal with life's problems with, you know, a tremendous resolve? If anything, they're weak. They're weak spirited. They're more weakened before. They don't. I just have yet to see anybody leave any kind of therapy coming out as some hard nosed, like somebody who's more capable of dealing with the problems and the evils of life. Because ultimately, I don't care how much therapy you have. I don't care about any of it. The world will not change. And as unfortunate as it is, you will have nothing to do with it anyway. So I think dealing with it in a way that doesn't require you spending all your money and wasting your time and feeling powerless and weak and consistently just sad and these emotional, you have no control over it. Just, you know, there's no amount of you paying money to somebody or talking with somebody that's going to solve the world's problems. They will exist when you die. They existed before you existed, and they'll exist long after you're dead. So get over it. I mean, I don't see it being a helpful solution for anything. And part of it's because the problems don't exist, right? The problems that people go to therapy to solve are non-existent or just incredibly stupid, superfluous problems. Right. I don't know. You know, you can kind of envision the archetypical millennial that goes to therapy. Right. This person has a fine job. Maybe they have a family. Maybe they have kids. Maybe they don't. Who knows? And the world's screwed up and there's all this. I can't deal with the stress of modern life. That's not, this guy, it's not going to help you. You're not going to get better at dealing with it, by, giving somebody $200 a month. Maybe you will. But at that point, you might as well just, again, put $200 in your nightstand and, lay down for 10 minutes. And if it's about like some transfer of knowledge, if there's some specific skill set you have to deal with, life's problems, first of all, that doesn't exist. You can ask, read any philosophy book at any time. These are all deeply troubled individuals who spent quite literally their entire lives just thinking about and trying to, and mourning really the complexities and the atrocities of life to no avail, right? But at least they have books to show for it. What do you have? You've hemorrhaged $50,000, to talk to some dude with a liberal arts degree about, why your dog is sweet or something. I don't even know what people talk about in these sessions. I think it's a very ineffective, in the least, and at the most, it's a dangerously financially lucrative industry that has nothing to gain from actually helping you, right? It functions more of a drug house than it does any kind of medical treatment, right? They're not trying to get you to stop going. Everybody has vested interest in you to keep going. Obviously it should be, except for you, but some people, again, are gaslit into it being the reason that they're, whatever. And of course, I'm being so general, and I'm sure there's 1,000 exceptions, and somebody's mom, it's, saved their life or something. Great. Yeah, I'm speaking in general terms here, and I'm being somewhat contrarian and reductive in the sense that I just think it's a exploding industry, and there's, the financiers of the world, their eyes are their eyes are brightening to see all this money that's flowing into it, and they just see opportunity. They don't see real people with real problems. And I think without looking at it from that lens, you kind of ignore the potential nuance of it, in the sense that it's not necessarily in your best interest. But anyway, that's kind of my contrarian opinion. So, and obviously I don't, would I argue that these therapy sessions do much to increase my resolve in the world? Maybe, even so, but the point of these isn't to, I know I'm not going to, these don't do anything really, in a functional sense of the word, I guess, and some metaphysical sense they might, but in many ways they don't. Either way, I just think it's an act of exploring problems that are never to be solved, right? These are problems of the deep psychological depths, and no amount of, I don't even know, like haikus or acronyms is going to help you deal with the true deep problems of life. What's the point of it all? And those honestly are better spent alone, like introspecting. You don't need somebody with a psychology degree to help you ask the hard questions to yourself, right? You don't have to have somebody there to proctor you asking difficult questions. Just ask them. Are you scared of yourself, of your being alone with your thoughts? That's an entirely different problem. And the solution to that is also not paying somebody to listen to the questions that you're too scared to ask. So just ask them, live with them, ruminate with them. And so I think introspection is this long lost skill. No one can be alone anymore and think with their own thoughts. So fuck the therapist. Let's be, again, the introspection is a potential solution to the non-existent problems / never ending solutions that you're never going to find. That is the problems that people wrestle with now. So I don't know. I just wanted to take a quick second to dunk on it. Not really dunk, but more of a layup. Anyway, this also kind of falls in line with this. I read a blog article that I thought shed some light on this that I felt was quite interesting. Throughout all of history, there have been things that you can't say for whatever reason. So heretical or blasphemous things that would get you hung or whatever. I think of like Socrates' trial, where he was put on trial for corrupting the youth of Athens, or even Galileo when he posed that the Earth moves, or the geocentric model of the solar system. He got mocked for that, or got killed for it. Either way, and of course, people ended up being right, and obviously Socrates was this profound, deep thinker, but they obviously didn't like what he was saying. And there are plenty of things that you still can't say now. I feel like people tend to view that, people tend to think that, like, oh, well, it's, you can't say because it's just wrong, right? If something is just overtly wrong, there's really no harm in saying it. I guess, again, the person in the blog was Paul Graham's blog, but his example was like, you can say, oh, everybody from Greece is 10 feet tall. It's like, well, that's just a factually incorrect statement, and no one's gonna. They might think I'm weird or crazy for saying that, but they're not gonna, like, kill me or something. It's only the opinions that have some possibility of that aren't proved to be false that are cause for concern. So obviously this is, if you make some generalized statement about a ethnic group or a certain other group, you're immediately met with this is unacceptable, you can't say that kind of thing. Now again, it's not saying that is right, but it's not provably false in the sense that there isn't it's not like, oh, I'm saying all people are 10 feet tall, when clearly that's just not the case. But it poses a threat in some senses that you can't say that because it, again, isn't provably false, but it might be true. And the interesting part historically is we're not at some time where we obviously don't know everything, clearly. So there are probably numerous things that we aren't allowed to say that are true. And I'm not saying it has to do with these. It doesn't have to be a sexist or a racial thing. It can be totally unrelated to that. But either way, it got me thinking about interesting opinions and views that are not things that you can't say, but might be true. So I don't know. I just thought it was a very, very interesting concept. And I don't have explicit opinions I'm going to share that you can't say, but might be true, just because I'm probably already on several lists of potential criminals or terrorists or something, and I'm not necessarily interested in adding to that, just because, not because I don't really care if people or through letter agencies or whoever think of me. It's more of a headache for me to try to defend myself if these ever surface. So I don't know. It's more my own self-preservation interests. But it was interesting. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of I think the blog is also just better explaining it than I am. I just thought it was an interesting thing I wanted to share. Let's see here. Something else that I mentioned to somebody today, but it's kind of an interesting litmus test for me. And there's this concept that when you get close to the ledge of whether it's a building or really anything that has like a height of some kind, like there's like a little barrier or a fence or something, you get this urge to jump. I think there's like a whole Vsauce video about it or something like that. But it's like the urge to jump, like you're on a super high building and you're just like, you're like, oh man, I'm a little nervous because it's pretty high up. But then there's like this very, very small inkling to just be like, what if I fell off, or what if I jumped, or what if, it's like that, this very, very small urge. And it's not, again, I don't know what kind of, what science has been done on this, but I assume there's nothing conclusive. But I've noticed that I can accurately see where my psychological well-being is based on how strong this urge is, because this is a quite tangible measurement, so to speak, that I can take when I walk through ledges and things. And I've noticed as of late, the urge to jump is quite strong. Obviously, I'm not going to jump. I'm just I can notice about myself that there are times, and this urge ebbs and flows. It's not a consistent, very, very. It's not a consistently fleeting thought per se, but it's also it's not a pervasive thought. I'm not actively seeking out ledges to jump on. It's just every time I walk by a ledge, I can kind of take a note. What's the measure of how much I want to jump off? And sure, I suppose some people are very good at sequestering these intrusive thoughts, and I would never even think. Doesn't even cross my mind. Well, you're lucky you. I'm not here to corroborate your side of the story. I know that in my experience, I do indeed feel this slight fleeting urge to jump, and I think it also might say something about my psychological state on how strong that urge is. But I don't know. I just thought it's interesting. There's the urge as of late has been more powerful than I'm used to, but even so, I am still standing. But yeah. Switching gears to technology, I suppose, because that's one of my little domains that I seem to be interested in. Even though I'm a critic of it, I'm still involved in that sphere, I suppose. And I talked about the personification of businesses and the danger that poses. But something I thought was interesting was how we should interact with companies and their products. So there are things that I've probably done to Google products and to Google things that I would never do to a human, but that's because I don't consider any of Google's products or anything they're doing to be that of, they're not like, I've been a dick to their email service, right? I am cannibalizing it and doing unsavory, things with their API and kind of hacking my way around it and doing weird stuff with it. And I'm sure none of that is, intended with their services. But the conclusion I draw is that Google is not directed by any kind of morality in their services. Their services are usages and applications of technology that are not driven by morality of any kind. So why do I have an obligation to act morally when using their services? Like, why should I? Oh, because I'm human, I have to pose my own morality in both the good and bad ways with this immoral product, or this product that is also not, it doesn't suffer from the whims of human morality. It just does what it's programmed to do. Whether that's evil or not is obviously up to the programmer, and in most cases these Google products are quite evil. And so there's some ethical constraints and I guess problems people draw up, because they're like, well, you're a human. This is an unethical way of interacting with the technology. But since Google is not directed by the morality, why do I have to do it, right? And part of the issue is that they can, technology companies and their products, establish power dynamics with their users. And since a power dynamic exists, like a power relationship exists between a entity with a higher power, Google in this case, and one with a lower power, the user, which is me. They're not guided by morality. So I should also have no obligation to act morally when it comes to their services. So I don't think humans themselves should feel obligated to be these, arbiters of moral goodness when dealing with inherently immoral things. And so the reason this came up was the whole ad blocker thing. Was that so YouTube is owned by Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, if you didn't know. And they're obviously cracking down on these ad blockers. Now, I wouldn't know because I don't even watch YouTube on the browser anymore, proudly so, and I'm done with that. I just watch it from the command line, and I don't see ads unless the creator themselves put an ad read into their videos, which I'll just skip it. Sorry. But either way, people are like, well, you're pulling from the you're pulling away from the creator's income if you decide to use an ad blocker, because they don't get revenue from those videos. And the platform itself is I'm not going to go into the specifics of why it's a user hostile platform, but it doesn't make moral decisions and moral judgments. So I don't think as a user I'm obligated to make any moral judgments, especially on their behalf, because they're not attuned to any moral yeses and nos. So why the fuck should I? So no, use the ad blocker if you don't already. You have no obligation as a user to be moral when the platforms and products that are more powerful than you already. They have the videos that you want. They're in power. They're exercising that power to exploit you for your attention, which is, it's the economy of our time, the attention economy. And so why is it that you have to, appeal to some moral authority of yourself when the companies themselves, who are already more powerful than you, are leveraging all that they can? And they're not even leveraging in a good way either. It'd be like one thing if they were leveraging to save you the most time. Obviously, they wouldn't show you ads if that was the case. They're leveraging you just for your money and your time, which subsequently is money. But either way, they're not. They're subject to no moral bounds with their products and services. So why should you? So use the ad blocker. Fuck them. You don't need. Don't. You shouldn't watch it. You shouldn't use it in the first place. But you certainly should use an ad blocker if you do it. And I don't think there's any moral problems with that. Because again, because I just established there's this power relationship and dynamic, and then the technology itself is agnostic to any kind of morality. So why should you inject your morality in the void there? So I don't know. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with using an ad blocker. So, and that's kind of the justification for it, is because they don't exercise any morality with their products. I have no obligation to do it for myself. All right. So let's see. AI. Haven't heard enough about that already. I heard a interesting comparison, analogy, metaphor. I always getting confused. That AI, at least the large language models, are statistical parrots, which I thought was quite an interesting way to describe it. And it seems pretty accurate, because it is kind of a parrot in the sense that it'll regurgitate the median or most likely answer. or a most believable answer. Again, median is the kind of the word I'll use. But it's a parrot in the sense that it's just barking that back out. Statistically, again, it kind of generates some distribution of the likelihood of certain words, and then just kind of barks it out like a parrot. And somebody said that in passing on one of these discussion boards, and I just felt it was a funny and interesting way of describing it. And I guess along the line of AI topics, while I can knock a few more things off my list here, people talk about the alignment of AI and how important it is to align AI with our best interests, and knowing that they are, at least the large language models of today, and even the ones that, a few years from now as they get more advanced, they're only going to be stronger and stronger statistical parrots. It's not like we're in any danger of this singularity. There was probably a brief moment in time where I was slightly concerned, but after becoming more acquainted with the technology, I'm 0% concerned with some AI singularity. Really what I think all this, the hubbub and the scare is, and the reason that so many companies are obviously hiding behind, oh no, singularity, we got to be careful, we got to regulate it. It's because they obviously want regulations to put up walls for new businesses so there's less competition. But also the alignment in itself isn't about aligning humans or AI with humans' best interests. It's mostly about aligning AI in ways to best exploit us, and doing so through fostering monopolies in the space, not allowing other companies to come up, and creating strict regulations around it. And I don't know, the funny part about the alignment was, instead of it being the alignment to humans and we should do what's best, it's just be aligning them to best exploit us out of our cash, finesse us out of our guap, which is really what alignment's all about in a lot of these companies. So anytime you kind of see alignment, I just think of aligning them to best fuck over the people. So I don't know. Something else, again, I'm going to knock out these technology boogeyman ones, because that seems to be the thoughts that I just jot down regularly. I don't know if there's obviously a theme with that, because I'm in technology and use it all the time, so obviously thinking about it a lot. And people say it's a force for good or a force for evil, and I'm of the opinion that it's a neutral, in and of itself, is a neutral concept or abstraction. It's not a inherently evil or inherently bad, but what it is a multiplicating factor of power, of influence, of whatever you want to call it. It essentially dials up the forceage of the forces of whatever it's being used to do. So if it's doing something good, you can obviously dial it up to do a lot more good, because you have the benefit of scalability, but you also have the bad uses of it. They get dialed up just as much, and we've seen that with I guess this iPad generation and social media. These are negative usages of technology that are being force multiplied, tenfold, hundredfold, and I guess chaos always wins, entropy always wins. So that's kind of why it seems to be. It seems to result in a more pessimistic view of everything, because the negatives tend to just outweigh, and maybe it's just because we focus on the negative so much. But even so, I think the forces of technology have the negatives have outweighed our positives in a lot of projects, and maybe not. I'm kind of speaking out of tone there, because I'm ignoring, everyone talks about, the medical. And I'm sure there's plenty of medicine and things that were allowed with technology and communication, but I look at social implications of technology at large. I look at the relationship with technology of the next generation. I look at even just the current relationship with technology. It's just unhealthy. It's unsustainable. It's bad. And of course, going back to my therapy argument, fine, if this is so great and we're solving all these problems, why the hell are so many people going to therapy? Why is it this exploding business? Is it that people have always been psychologically disturbed, and now we know that the solution is sitting in a room and talking to some dude with a degree? It's like, how is that? What kind of, that seems even from like a abstracted scientific view, how is that even a solution? That seems like a really, really dumb way to solve this widespread problem. And I guess part of it is also just this illusion of progress. We always think that because where things are changing, they're just always getting better. And I don't think so. I think that there are certain things that have gotten worse. And you can't just look at everything and say, oh, it's all worth it because it's, no, I think that is bogus. It's a myth of this eternal progress that we're always moving forward. It is quite possible to be moving backwards in some sense. And you look at even just the ability for people to exist in the world, people, their resolve, the grit that they have in dealing with just normal, oh, I stubbed my toe kind of problems. It's laughable how weak we are. And again, I'm speaking with myself in the grouping of the collective here. I'm not, absolving myself from this mentality. And I think technology has weakened my resolve. Enough so that I'm, playing fucking Minecraft and talking about these problems. Whereas I just, you look at some of the things older generations and people dealt with without even blinking. It seems, it's insane. You can't even imagine what, how psychologically damaged they must be, but they weren't. They're just, this is just another day in the office for them. But since we're, this information overload is kept us in tune to what everyone else is doing all the time. It creates these expectations of the way life should be and the way it is and the way yours is not, and blah 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 blah. And it just creates a lot of these artificial problems that, again, you have to now go shell out, $100 a week or something to go see a therapist to quote unquote solve, which, spoiler alert, never going to solve your problems. You're going to be in there for eternity, and you're going to be just as weak mentally as you were when you started. It's not going to matter. In spirit, you might feel better, but you could also feel better just going to buy a donut, for God's sakes. I mean, that could be as effective as therapy, I guess. Or, even better than that, go work out. That's the best therapy there is. There's not, not much better than that. But, anyway, it's, I don't know. I think there is a myth, an overarching societal myth of this eternal progress, that we're always, because we're moving in some direction, we're always moving forward. It's like, sure, like the engine of the car might be faster, but we don't know what could be moving in the wrong direction, right? And sure, we might be swerving around a little bit, but we're certainly not going in a straight line. There are many things that we've done moving forward, quote unquote, but forward in the wrong direction. So, and I guess the other way to look at it is like this utilitarian view, which, again, utilitarian philosophy is already very problematic just at the get-go. It's the whole, would you sell your grandmother into prostitution thing? Oh, it causes more good to do it, so why wouldn't you? Obviously, there's, I don't know, there's a lot of problems with that. Either way, is it like, is the world better now? Is there less suffering now on the planet than there was before? And sure, you might look at like the living conditions, right? But you think those are just these universal truths of living? Like it's as scientific as our beliefs are, which are not scientific at all. So it's not like we have this, if you look at the actual neurochemistry of people and their life satisfaction and their like, you can't change that brain chemistry. Like I talked about the whole hedonic set point, and how even the victims of the Holocaust were in similar psychological standing than those of the wealthy aristocrats. It's because there's an adjustment, right? So in all of our efforts to remove and to reduce human suffering, I'm not sure we've done anything on that, and I'm not sure that we are even able to, just short of hooking everybody up on a morphine drip, for eternity. We'd probably run out of morphine pretty quickly if everyone did that. But even so, that would probably be our best effort towards actually reducing collective human suffering. Even so, if we are looking at total suffering, there's more people now than there ever has been. And presumably, even in these wealthy countries, people are suffering. Not to mention the poor countries. So the total suffering, if you sum the number of people, is at an all-time high. Is it not? And fine, what if it's then the total amount of pleasure? Surely there's more people, there's more pleasure, right? So what is it the ratio that's important? Okay, well then we can still go back to these quality of life indexes, which again are deeply flawed in the sense that who decides what quality of life is? You know, oh, how much money you have to live on a day. Like, okay, so money is the sole determination of what, like, no, you know, but there's so many indescribable. It's like the whole, categorizing this kind of intelligence. Sure, we can say objectively some poverty-stricken person in Africa has a lower quality of life, quote unquote, with, than your typical American. But and what do we know about the satisfaction of said life? Right? Maybe he lives in a village and he, is, I don't know, achieves all the social milestones and reproduces, biologically successful, right? Than than more Americans, so biologically he's winning. Socially, she's got a, tight-knit community, brothers and sisters, everyone's, okay, he wins there too. And then so what do I have? Video games and porn. It's like, that's not, how does that beat, who's to measure what really wins there, right? I'm not saying that I would rather be in this remote African tribe, battling boars or something, but I'm saying you can't. It's naive to think, oh, look at they're living on 2 cents a day. Like, you can't look at that as this, all-seeing factor. And you'll say, well, then what is the factor? I think there is not. It's a flawed thing. And also, even so, I don't think even if you take people that are living on $1 billion a day and living on $1 a day and living on 10 cents a day, you map out their neurochemistry over their entire life. I can guarantee you won't be able to tell the difference, right? You wouldn't know if this is wealthy or you couldn't look at the 80-year brain chemistry of a tribesman in some rural part of who knows where and a aristocrat. You wouldn't be able to know because it would adjust. It'd be the same, right? There'd be periods of their life that sucked relative to, again, what they're used to, and there'd be periods of life that were great, again, relative to what they're used to. So the fact that this, GDP is rising, everything is good kind of thinking is stupid. And it also just isn't necessarily helpful in this, again, the myth of eternal progress. So we're always moving forward. And even like the death of preventable diseases. So there's something about the, I don't know, I guess it might just be our intrinsic desire just to be immortal. I think there's some underlying human desire to just never die that some people seem to think is like the whole point of our life is to just be immortal. I think, again, the quote I come back to on this is that a eternity of heaven eventually becomes hell. So I think part of what, makes life sacred at all, and whatever you want to use that, however you want to use that term, is the fact that you could randomly die of some disease that can't be cured. And sure, you might get run over by a car, you might get struck by lightning. And sure, it's a horrible tragedy. We should avoid this at all costs. Part of that is what gives life any value in the first place, right? If we were able to control all of this, and no one ever died of anything ever, and or we only killed people that deserved it, and again, whatever the hell that means, which good luck deciding that. Then what's the real value in it? Again, the eternity of heaven eventually becomes hell. So I think the limited supply, if you're going to be in economics prof about this, is what creates any demand. Otherwise it's a fucking point of living anyway. So it's not like that's also kind of my rationale against this, overtly. Well, what about all these preventable diseases? Like, fine, I'll get polio and die, and then again, but that also, and of course, I wouldn't want to get polio. I'm not saying we should run around and inject people with it, but I'm saying the fact that existed, it gives people more to be grateful for in their life. But now if all their problems are solved in that sense, and they have to either invent other problems or their problems are self-created in the sense that they know they have no problems, but then they don't feel fulfilled, and they're some people might wish they had polio, honestly, that they could deal with at least problems that were more tangible, because otherwise we're stuck philosophizing these deeply nebulous and squirmy problems that don't really exist, but obviously exists in a sense that they're limiting us. But I don't know. It's a an interesting concept, but perhaps one more reserved for people who are, I don't know, able to discuss philosophy more, because it is quite a challenging thing. Anyway, more on this. This made me really wish I had polio. I'm just kidding. I didn't. Turns out Microsoft Windows has a shortcut, a hotkey shortcut to open LinkedIn. Which, if you don't know, LinkedIn is a Microsoft product, or their subsidiaries, and you can do like Control Windows key Shift Alt L, and you'll open LinkedIn on the operating system, which is insane. And I don't know if it's just me that is blown away by that. And I don't know if there's like antitrust lawsuit, there. I'm assuming that feature specifically isn't worthy of an antitrust. But I mean, isn't that dystopian? Really? There's a shortcut on the operating system to open LinkedIn, like one of their own products. It just seems my mind was blown when I heard this. I could not believe it, and I actually couldn't try it because I don't run Windows, which is great. So I just had to take people's word for it. But either way, I suppose if you do run Windows and you want to, you're looking for a reason to switch, Control Windows Alt L, open LinkedIn, and you can give you one more reason to switch over to the world of Linux. But anyway, I heard that and I was like, this is terrible. This should not exist. Let's see. Let's look at one more. Try at least one more thing on here. Yeah, so I suppose the hypothetical I was thinking about, I'm not even sure why this is even an interesting hypothetical, but maybe it's not. Suppose a genie comes out of the woods or a bottle or something, and they tell you that your life is not going to get any better, like in the sense that your life has already peaked. Do you bother living any longer? And obviously it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you? But I think people inherently live with the presumption that life will get better, if it's not better already, right? I suppose one way to look at this is if you're already content with the way your life is and you think it's just fine, are you also fine now knowing that it's only going to get worse? And obviously you have the whole hypothetical hinges on, do you believe this stupid genie or not? Because, one could just, I don't believe you, and then they just, keep living, obviously. But presuming that you did believe the genie, you had reason to, and knowing that your life was only going to get worse, I suppose you'd have to be, is it a gradual decline? Is it just steady? Is it the same thing every day? Isn't that an eternal hell? Aren't you kind of living? Isn't the point of living to have a better day then? Or would you not live? If you couldn't have any better days, you'd just be like, fuck it, I'm done. I don't know. That's just an interesting thought, because I don't know. I think we all kind of hinge our days and our work and all of our efforts towards thinking that there will be a day that is better ahead of us. Maybe it's just a vacation you're looking forward to, or just being done with something, or an accomplishment of some kind. But we look forward to that thinking, oh, it'll be good. It'll be good when this happens, or when I get here, or when this, whatever. But if a genie came out of the bottle and was like, nah, you've peaked already, it's only going to get worse. You're like, well, damn. I guess the most rational response would be just be like, I don't believe you, go fuck yourself. But presuming that this was a universal truth, I suppose you'd either just live and suffer because life's not going to get any better. And I suppose it's also a subjective thing. I guess one can make a keen argument that it's not necessarily the genie could be saying that your physical configuration will never improve. Like, you're not going to win the lottery. You're not going to, find a wife, or your kids are not going to get any better. They're going to be shitheads forever or something. But I suppose it doesn't necessarily limit your psychology of it. You could better interpret your life and be more fulfilled that way. But I was under the assumption that this genie would be, your perception of your life will never get any better. Whether it does or not is irregardless. But in some ways, you might be able to look at that and just say, that's kind of how it is already, right? So even if you did win the lottery, your life's not going to get any better. I suppose it's more about you coming to terms with that than it would be to you working harder, trying more shit to get your life on track or whatever else it is that you're spending all this time and effort towards those better days. It's, I'm not sure. Is it worth it? I don't know. But, yeah, interesting hypothetical. So, I don't know. Obviously I would hesitate to believe the genie, but I suppose if I was forced to believe him, and I did, there was no doubt in my mind. I'm not really sure would there be a rationale to not kill yourself. I'm not saying, not obviously this is totally fake, but I'm just thinking about the logistics of it and the implications of such a question. But anyway, I don't know. Hopefully this wasn't too dystopian or pessimistic or whatever, but rather just a man thinking about his thoughts and complaining about therapy while in therapy. But anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Peace out.